2 months ago, we analyzed every 2D Pokemon game to find out which of their 70 towns was the best to live in.
But not best for people, best for worms.
And not best for worm-type Pokemon, just regular worms.
And while we uncovered some interesting results, a glaring hole in our research was left unanswered.
Which is, what are the top 10 worst Pokemon towns for a worm to live in?
So before starting, you may be wondering why anyone would ever want this information.
Maybe you hate worms and want to plan your Pokemon vacation around avoiding them. Maybe you just have a curious soul and a thirst for random knowledge. Or maybe you yourself are a worm looking to avoid making a horrible real estate investment.
And if that's the case, please crawl across your keyboard to leave us a comment. That's okay, take your time.
Just one more piece of housekeeping before we reveal our list. You need to know what criteria we assessed to rank each settlement.
First, we consider the population of each town. More people means more feet that could potentially step on you, which I assume is not enjoyed by worms.
Unless you're one of the slimy ones.
I hate that I'm going to have to edit this.
Second, are there birds nearby? We counted the bird Pokemon in all adjacent routes to see how likely it is that you'd get eaten.
And also keep in mind that these are regular worms. They don't have moves to defend themselves like Pokemon worms do.
Okay, yeah, String Shot isn't a defense, Shannon. That's tucking the birds in so they have a nice breakfast in bed.
Third, how much dirt is in the town? This is basically worm real estate. Less dirt means fewer homes, driving up the cost of rent.
Fourth, are there many objects lying around the town that worms can hide under? This counts as recreation. The moist underbelly of rocks are like nightclubs for worms.
What's the plant situation like? Plants are a main source of food for worms, so without them, their options become very limited.
And finally, are there any other notable features of the town, such as man-made structures or geographical features, that might impact a worm's life?
These were the things we considered as we ranked the 10 worst towns to live in if you were a worm. So starting off with number 10, Olivine City.
Primarily a community used by fishing folk, any worms that live here are in constant fear of being dug up by fishermen and used on hooks to catch fish.
Imagine being eaten by a Magikarp. You've just become food for the weakest, most useless creature in the world. And that's an official description from science. Knowing that you're that low on the food chain has got to hurt.
If I was so weak as to be consumed entirely by a Magikarp, I think I'd just let it happen. Like, no sense going on with that shame hanging over my head.
Another notable fishing community is Vermilion in Kanto. However, it doesn't make our list, as Olivine is just that much worse. While Vermilion has grass and dirt, Olivine is made almost entirely of concrete and docks.
Plus, it also has the lighthouse. Imagine, you emerge from the ground to gaze upon the night sky and then get blasted in the eyes by its light.
Number 9, Eterna City in Sinnoh.
Now you may be wondering, why is this a bad home for worms?
Well, of course they are. That's why they're watching the video.
I don't need your sass, Shannon. Let me say my lines.
Sorry.
It has plenty of dirt and plant life, as well as a huge statue that they could live under.
So we touched on this in the last video, but Eterna makes the list solely because of the Underground Man.
This is a guy so obsessed with digging and being inside the dirt that the sign to his house literally reads, "The Underground Man."
There's just no rest as a worm with that guy around. You could wake up in the middle of the night and he's just there, staring.
It's like having the world's nosiest neighbor, except building a taller fence around your yard doesn't matter because he has a key to your front door.
On the other hand, the Underground Man does seem kind of old. If you can handle his invasiveness for a few years until he eventually passes, you'll be in on the ground floor before the area becomes desirable and prices skyrocket.
Next up, Sutopolis in the Hoenn region. This city is made up almost entirely of rock, so unless you want to destroy your precious little worm face trying to break through, you're gonna have to live downtown. And I hear the parking situation is dire.
This place is also located inside a crater in the middle of the ocean. How would a worm even get here?
I'm assuming maybe a Wingull flies over and accidentally drops it in?
Well, then how would it get out?
Well, they don't. I mean, it's not a terrible place to live. They can at least survive here with a small amount of dirt and plant life, but you know what they say. Once you go crater, there's no see you later.
On the other side of Hoenn, we have number 7, Dewford Town. This place is completely covered in sand, and although I'm no wormologist, I'm pretty sure worms can't live in sand.
Well, actually they can, just not very long. So while Cyanwood in Johto is also composed of sand, it at least has some grass so you could wait out your days while stranded on this island. Wait, actually that may be worse. Shannon, should number 7 be Cyanwood instead?
Both. both as good.
Moving right along, we have Lentimus Town in Unova, which, honestly, I had no idea existed before now. Apparently for good reason, because everything here is dead.
This is a dry, barren wasteland that even the bushes decided wasn't worth living in.
Any worms here would either shrivel up from the arid environment or starve to death from the lack of food. Our whole case for this town can be summed up with this one clip.
Food, water, atmosphere.
The only notable thing here is this plane, which, if you're lucky, you can use to escape this hell before it's too late.
Actually, never mind, because that plane only goes to one place, which may even be worse.
Oh no.
Number 5, Mistralton City. Although it doesn't look too bad at first glance, with decent amounts of dirt, plant life, and even gardens with produce that residents probably load up with food scraps for you to compost, looks can be deceiving.
The problem here is Mistralton Gym. It's filled with bird Pokemon who definitely want to eat you. And you know they're hungry after working up an appetite from all those gym battles.
So the gardens are definitely a trap. Worms are lured in with the promise of apple cores and delicious manure, just to be heartlessly sacrificed to satiate the gym's bird Pokemon. There is no greater dishonor.
Violet and Fortree City also have flying gyms, but they don't have a sinister underbelly like Mistralton does. Also, Violet's gym is the first one you visit in the Johto region, so there are very few bird Pokemon inside. And Fortree is actually one of the best places for a worm to live because of its lush environment and dirt protected by trees and walkways. But Mistralton, a total miss.
Number 4 is Snowpoint City. Do I really need to explain why? Snow is literally in the name.
Worms are able to survive the cold and snow during the winter, but do so by tunneling 6 feet underground to hibernate until the weather warms up, which, for here would be never.
It's not called sometimes Snowpoint City. The worms living here would go into an eternal sleep, which, honestly, may be better than dealing with snow.
And now we're down to the final 3. Black City in Unova.
This is a weird place because it constantly changes, growing in size as you either invite people from Entralink or complete areas in Black Tower.
Just like Manhattan.
Is that a reference I should know?
I don't know.
Okay, well, even at its smallest, Black City is still a place with absolutely no dirt or plant life, and its strange buildings and aesthetics make it look like you're living in a computer. Does this place even exist? If you move here, do you exist?
Well, if you're a worm and you end up here, maybe it would be better if you didn't.
He's going back to Manhattan.
That's the place Peter thinks is funny for some reason. Number 2 is Saffron in Kanto. This city is completely made of concrete and surrounded on all 4 sides by predators.
Well, at least access to the city is blocked by guarded buildings.
They're birds, Shannon. They can fly right over them.
Oh no, and the worms can't get out without proper ID. They're trapped.
Where's your paperwork? I don't know, I don't have thumbs. Saffron is also the 2nd largest city in Kanto, with tons of buildings that increase foot traffic, including Silphco Company headquarters, Magnet Train, Gym, and the Gym Gym. So, the likelihood of getting stepped on is at an all-time high.
There's also lots of rocket activity. Nobody wants to live in a crime neighborhood.
And now, the number 1 worst town to live in if you were a worm. Pacific Town in Hoenn.
It is literally floating on the ocean. There is no dirt, there is no ground. The only way a worm is living here is in the jar of some emotionally disturbed child.
And you know what? There's not even anything interesting here. It's an optional town in the middle of the ocean in a generation infamously known for being 7 out of 10 too much water. I mean, I'm convinced that most casual players didn't even know this town existed.
So no one can hear your suffering, worm. They don't even know it exists.
Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more ridiculous Pokemon videos.